Hey! Give everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live episode of the Cats and Bolts, Florida's #1 hockey podcast. 3, 2,
Yeah, that's it. We're back. The crew is here. We're live and in studio. Podcast Junkies in Boca Raton, Florida. It is Florida's favorite and most watched hockey show, Cats and Bolts. I'm Rod. She's Sarina. And we are live on YouTube and just YouTube, right, Ben? Not anywhere else?
Correct.
Yeah. For now. Ready to talk Florida NHL hockey, National Hockey League. The title of the show is 1 Week Left, because that's pretty much what we have left in the regular season. And then, Sarina, Dawn, the Stanley Cup playoffs. Are you ready?
I mean, I guess. I'm not playing, so I don't... Listen, I have zero faith in my Oilers. I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. So, I mean, when they start, they start.
JC has checked in from Dallas already. So I'll try and give as many live shout outs as I can as we roll. Ben reads your questions live. We become a thing here. I don't know if this is the 4th or 5th live show, but I'll tell you what, she's the Oilers fan. I noticed today they have slipped out of the top 5 betting odds, if anybody cares. And you're wearing a Vegas Golden Knights shirt, which is like their top rival. So hell has frozen over, everybody. I'm a little surprised that you would wear a rival shirt.
I don't think there's one Oilers fan that thinks Vegas is their top rival.
Second rival, then.
I mean, I don't know. I don't really feel like there's a huge rivalry between Edmonton and Vegas. Not like there is between Edmonton and Colorado or Dallas or LA at this point, or obviously Calgary, Vancouver. Guys, listen, it's Edmonton. They literally, as of today, have $42.2 million in cap space sitting injured. It's absolutely atrocious. Like every day, there's another guy. I think Nugent Hopkins is not playing tonight. And I'm not going to go down the, we're injured, we're going to lose train, because I refuse to play that game. But it's not looking good for the Oilers right now. They have a lot of guys out.
Maybe that's why they slipped out of the betting rankings and all the rest. I'm just shocked that you would wear any shirt other than the Oilers. You understand. It's something I never thought you would ever do.
I mean, I've had Leaf shirts in the past.
Not that I've seen.
I've had... Yeah, I have. I believe it or not, I actually had a Panthers tank top one time because it was so nice, and it had the logo that's on the shoulder with the palm tree, and it was all embroidered. It was like a women's tank top. It was actually really nice. To be honest, I don't know where it is, but yeah. But I mean, this shirt's really nice.
Vegas has great gear.
Their stuff
I got some of it.
Is unbelievable.
Yeah, but I also had a thing a couple of years ago in the house, and you took it down, and I don't even know where it is. It was on the wall, remember?
That's because Edmonton had lost to Vegas. Or no, they were playing in the playoffs. It hung in the house for like a year, and then they were playing in the playoffs, so I took it down and hit it.
Do you know where it is?
I'll have to look.
Doesn't matter. Okay, to the task at hand. The questions are coming in already, so I have my own. The viewer questions are great, and obviously she joined us from Las Vegas last week. That's a big part of why she's wearing the gear, and they got nice stuff, and I know they treated her great.
I was like, I did their live at T-Mobile because that's the only day of the year they have practice at T-Mobile, because there was team photo day.
It's a God shot.
Staff photo day, and everyone's like, how come you got to do your thing from there? I don't know.
It's a God shot.
I just did it.
That's cool. Okay, so number one, I get a lot of points here. They tie in a little bit with what the viewers are saying. But number one, just this wild Atlantic Division, as we sit here today, and why we love doing the live shows, is it's current. As Benny Cobb says, it sucks when we had to wait a day. Not anymore.
Is Ben watching?
I don't know. Ben does not seem to be here, but Joshua Doors here says, what's going on, Rod? Good to see you again, Josh. The Leafs are number 1 with 98 points. Tampa Bay's number 2 with 96 points. The Panthers are 3rd with 94 points. Ottawa's 4th with 90 points. This is insane. What do you think about this race?
What I think is absolutely insane was that the Ottawa Senators came within 2 points of Florida.
Yeah.
I was watching last week when I was out of town, Ottawa creeping up on everybody. And I was just like, I don't think there's anybody that would have thought that Ottawa would be so... Actually, when the thought first crossed my mind, I was like, I don't think anybody thought Ottawa would be within 8 points of the Panthers. Literally, I don't think any of us did. All of a sudden, they were 2 points from the Panthers. And I think it's just been interesting. To be honest, I'm not really surprised that what's sitting is where it's sitting. I am a little surprised that Tampa pulled ahead of the Panthers, but realistically, I knew they could put themselves in a good position.
Well, just the race itself being this close with a week to go. And we talked about this last week. How much do the Panthers really care about where they finish versus getting healthy? But it's just been a lot of fun. Like Detroit's done by virtue of last night. The Rangers, I think, have officially been eliminated. In the West, some teams are falling off that we thought would go right down to the final wire. It's just been a hell of a lot of fun. We'll get to the playoff pairings in a second, but because it's a live show and point two is last night's game, Panthers 3, Maple Leafs 1. We were there. Thank you, Panthers. Hell of a hockey game, I thought. Leafs fans are going nuts because they lost. They're Leaf fans. They got to go 82-0 or they're upset. It proved a lot. The Panthers snapped a 5-game slide. I didn't think they were going to win. They look pretty good.
The Panthers looked really good last night. I think they caught Toronto a little bit standing around. Toronto played okay, in my opinion, defensively, but I think there was just too many issues. The Panthers were just on top of them for the majority of the game, especially in the first period. They came out really hot. And it does happen. You know, I watched the Oilers lose however many games on the road that they should have won. They went into Vegas, won that, but then they lost in Anaheim. And it was just like, what are we doing here, guys? It just happens when you're on the road, especially at this time of the season. It can get really tricky.
Yeah, well, Barkov was bad. I like the line combinations. I don't really get that much into the lines. Everybody gets so horny about them, but I'm like, they could change 2 shifts in. So, I don't get as much. But they had Barkov, Reinhart, and who else? Verhaeghe together, I think, last night for a bit. And I'm like, oh, wow. Loading them all up. And it worked. Which, by the way, we could go really deep into this if you want to. Some of the other podcasts in this house say that not that we go too deep, that we go deeper than anybody would on hockey, but the 2 goals for the Panthers that they scored were weak. It was a wrist shot by Gustav Forsling from the blue line. A wrist shot should never beat a goalie in the NHL. And then Eetu Luostarinen on the winner just threw the puck at the net. He didn't even know that he scored. I'm not saying they were fluky. They earned those goals, and Bob was great, but Leafs are going nowhere if that's their goaltending.
To be totally honest, though, I feel like Toronto wasn't terrible in net. You know, there was a lot of saves because Florida pushed. I don't really think Bob had to make a lot of good saves last night. I think it was to the point at one point Florida was out shooting them by double halfway through the second period. But going back to Verhaeghe being on that line, we've seen Verhaeghe go from the top line to the third line, whatever. And I don't think that's a knock to Verhaeghe. I think that's hey, this dude is so talented, he can play with these other players. I don't feel like a Reinhart is as versatile of a player as Ben taking pictures. I don't feel like Reinhart's as versatile as Verhaeghe is on that side, you know? So, but I mean, anybody could play with Barkov and be successful.
Yeah, and Verhaeghe can score from anywhere. So I'm glad you brought up Bob.
Oh, here we go.
The piece de resistance. You didn't see this, Ben. You haven't seen it yet. I broke down and bought the Sergei Bobrovsky bobblehead, which incidentally, it broke already, Sarina. I pulled it out of the box this morning and it snapped in half.
Of course it did.
I break all these things. For what I pay, what we all pay, they should be a lot more durable. You know, but anyways, I had this at the studio where I do my daytime show, and Yvonne, the beautiful receptionist at the Rod Peterson show, said to me, Rod, the head's not bobbling. I said, well, he's got a neck guard, and that's going to stay in place because I don't want Bob to take any pucks off his throat. So it looks like a lifesaver around his neck to say. So that's going to stay there. And Bob, welcome to the Cats and Bolts podcast. We love you, Bob.
And I know Bob's going back in his cushioned environment because we have a Barkov that is missing a couple of legs. They just get broken in the box.
I know.
So
yeah. Welcome, Bob. Doesn't he look good there? I think he does. I broke down and had to buy a bobbleheads. Make me happy. I don't know what to say about that.
It's big, that one.
$60.
It's a big Bob.
$60, and
it's
by the way,
bobblehead. Ding, ding, ding.
And by the way, the Panthers give the media a discount on merch, so thank you, Panthers, and you may want to know that when you're shopping for Panthers gear.
When I buy all my Panthers clothes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say we have a new addition to the set, and he looks lovely. Bobby.
Bobby's got some big mitts.
Big hands on him?
Hands.
Yeah. Okay. JC from Dallas writes in, he says, that's so awesome. I need that. And he says, and I need the mini Zamboni. This is legit. I bought the popcorn's like $28 and you get to keep the Zamboni. So,
well, okay, for the record, guys, the popcorn goes in the top. This lifts up. But I also, I like feel that as much as I don't care, I know you viewers do, that the base of Bob is cool as well. It's not just like a blue base. It's got like the, because we don't want to break
the
him.
Stanley Cup logo.
Yeah, it's like a whole
from
thing.
2024.
So
it was worth the $60, which I thought was a lot. Yeah, for a bobblehead.
$60
But again, it's the Stanley Cup champs. It's Bob, and it makes me happy. And what's the price of happiness? Josh writes in and says, my son loves his popcorn Zamboni. Good, and congratulations on the birth of Noah, your second boy, Josh and family. So
we also probably should point out, this is a drink. This is a cup.
That's right.
So this guy has a hole in his head for the straw. So
I never knew that.
Yeah,
I never knew that was a cup.
Rod
That's
bought
funny.
this last year in Tampa because we're like, we need it for the set, and it's a little drink cup.
We're deficient in lightning gear, and the gator head behind Sarina, we just found.
It was here for
around
cup.
here.
Like, man,
Yeah.
It fits. We're just going to leave it here. Who cares?
Okay.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. Ben, we're getting to you with viewer comments. I want you to read the one. Let's jump to it now. JC, it's like the third one on the screen.
the
Can
one
you
where-
read it?
Do we think the recent comments from, is that Marchie?
Yeah.
That the team may have many leaders causing clicks, headbutts in the locker room?
Too many leaders. Too many
leaders.
chefs ruin the stew. Too many chefs in the kitchen. I didn't see the comment at all. They'll sort it out. They've won Stanley Cups before. They can put the egos aside. That was addressed when all those trades were made. And I don't know where you are on this, Sarina. They had lost 5 in a row going into that game last night. They're looking for answers. I'm not concerned about too many leaders in the room. Not at all. I don't think you can have too many.
It goes back to the conversation I had with Peter Horacek about the Four Nations Cup. You have the two best players in the world in Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon playing on the same team. Yeah. Neither one of them was the captain for Canada because it was Sidney Crosby's team. They were asked to play a role, and they played that role. Marchand, I knew exactly what was going to be expected of him when he went onto that team. And the same thing, he's a professional. He's doing what he knows how to do. That I didn't see the comments either, but I guarantee people are fluffing it up. There's way more to it than there absolutely needs to be. Marchand's going to know his role. He knows he's not going to come in because Barkov is the captain. He's not like that. Guys aren't like that. So people need to stop making stuff up like that. Having said that, the difference is this. When we went back to the start of our podcast this year, we talked about Nashville. And I was the person that said there are too many superstars thrown together on one team that have never played together. And look what happened. This is completely different because you got one guy coming into a team that's already established, and that guy is a professional.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Look at Detroit. Like I wanted to talk about, and we will if we have time, predictions for who was going to be in the playoffs and who was out. I thought Detroit was going to be in, but what they're saying is those guys didn't mesh. Tarasenko, Talbot, you name it, all those guys. But it's worked in Ottawa. They got a lot of new faces up there too. Primarily a goalie in Linus Ullmark. Right? So it's some teams it works, some it doesn't.
Sure, but I knew Detroit wasn't going to get in. I said it. They're missing something. The thing with Ullmark, he's been playing unbelievable, and Ottawa has two really good goaltenders. And if you look at Detroit, they are like hoping Patrick Kane was going to be the savior, and then they're hoping they don't have a strong enough captain. You can argue with me. People can argue with me all day long. In my opinion, Dylan Larkin is not a good captain for them. He hasn't done shit to help them. And I'm not saying there's anybody on the team that's a better option, but Larkin's never been able to do it. He gets injured, he gets whatever. Ottawa's captain, Brady Tkachuk, that's a completely different captain. That's the difference.
Ooh, oh yeah, which is a topic for another time. Maybe once we get into the playoffs, because Ottawa's already clinched and what Brady Tkachuk means to that team. But Benny, you want to read the last one from Shane, if you don't mind?
Yeah, of course. So Shane from Brandon, Manitoba says this could be the worst season for average teams doing next to nothing, making the playoffs? I should know. I'm a Habs fan.
I like where you're going, but we've been watching Montreal in the rebuild since they lost to Tampa Bay in the Stanley Cup final. Martin St. Louis took over, and I said to you, I've been watching them really closely here because I've got a lot of Hab fan friends, and I remember coming home and saying to her, they got the best AHL team in the NHL. Remember how young they were? And I'm like, if they can keep this group together and don't fire Martin St. Louis, they're going to be good. So you can say they're average, but I don't think they are average. They're a team full of really young superstars, and they love Martin St. Louis, who'd never coached before. He was coaching Pee Wee before the Habs hired him. It's a hell of a story. They've been going like this. They're going to keep going like this. Go ahead.
There are a billion reasons why that's happening in Montreal. The main one is because Martin St. Louis is French Canadian. You need in Montreal to have, for those of you that never paid attention to the Habs before 15, 20 years ago, back 40, 50 years ago, they only had French players. There's Saku Koivu, I think, was the first captain that was not a French Canadian that wore the C in Montreal. He was a Finn, for God's sake. And everybody's like, what? Even I was shocked. But they go back to their people. All of their coaches are French Canadian all the time. They don't mess around, and they stuck with St. Louis because he's passionate. Sure, he played hockey in Tampa, but he's passionate about being in Montreal. And then you have a couple of young guys that are small up front.
They're all young. They're all small.
Caulfield and Suzuki play on the top line with Slafkovsky, who's a giant. But Caulfield and Suzuki are small. St. Louis is really small, but they understand. He understands them. Montreal's not necessarily the deepest team in the league, but I don't think anybody can argue how hard they play. When the Kings won their first Stanley Cup, nobody expected them to win the Stanley Cup, but they played harder than everybody else, and that's why they won.
Well, you talk about it's the 5'8" and under team. Gallagher, Suzuki, Caulfield, and there are more. But Line A has been the perfect addition, right? Probably the trade of the year in the NHL. We talked about that. So that's our take, Shane. Cyberuski writes in and says, what's going on? Stick around and you'll see. But there was this thing going around. I loathe bringing it up. I hate doing it, but that's what we do in the sports talk world. It came out of Toronto, where all the crap does, that the Panthers were tanking it to get a better playoff position with their 5 losses in a row and sitting Forsling and sitting Barkov and sitting Tkachuk and sitting Sam Bennett now. I was enraged by that. That was on Monday, I think that came out. Turns out it was a fan site, before I ask you your thoughts on that stupid. Winners don't tank it, okay? And losers wouldn't understand what that even means, to not tank it. That's my thought on that.
Again, it's just somebody making up some stupid crap.
Yeah.
I've said this every single time we've talked about it, and people still try to argue with me. Nobody gives a half-assed effort to save it for the playoffs. Nobody does. I don't care. Someone made a comment about how they need to save their energy for the playoffs. What? Have you ever played a sport, a team sport? If any of those players went to Paul Maurice and said, you know what, I'm just going to save it for the playoffs, he'd be like, you ain't saving, you're saving it for the golf course. Nobody saves it for the playoffs. If you sit guys because they're injured right now, it makes sense. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You have to get your guys ready for the playoffs. Why do you think McDavid's not playing right now? You bet your ass he's going to be back for the playoffs. There was a purpose. With Tkachuk, they're like, even if you can skate, you're sitting now, as they should have. But guys, nobody half-ass it. No hockey player worth a grain of salt is going to tank anything. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
And what pisses me off is that I had to deal with somebody sending it to me. And he was a retired RCMP guy, a nice guy, but he can't tell the difference between TSN and a fan site. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't know. But that's the business now. Leafs at Tampa Bay tonight. This is what I think is odd. I always wonder how the coaches handle the goalies. Why would Craig Berube not start Anthony Stolarz going into Sunrise, Stolar's former team, but he played Wall, who I didn't think was good. And tonight they're in Tampa, which means they have to play Stolarz. Not that you really care, but I'm like, which game do you care about the most.
They wanted to win. Wall is their starter, and they wanted to win to clinch a playoff spot. So they're not going to be like, well, let's play Stolarz because he used to
Well, they
play
had
here.
to decide because they're not going to play one goalie in both games.
Right, but they wanted to play for the win last night. They want to get it clinched as soon as possible. So I don't know. I would have. If Wool is your starter, that's who you start. And then if they decide that Stolarz is going to start tonight because apparently goaltenders cannot play on back-to-back nights.
Well, that's my point is.
It's ridiculous. Maybe they will start Wool tonight. Who knows? Why would I would? He's a goaltender, for God's sake.
I'm not arguing, but it's not how they do it anymore. Unless you're desperate. A couple of years ago, Winnipeg was playing like their ass was on fire for whatever reason, if they were trying to get first, but they were playing Hellebuck every game, right, in back-to-backs. Are the Leafs there? Are they desperate?
No, but
I don't think so.
Stolarz isn't garbage, but look at Montreal. Montreal is like, we have two goaltenders that are on fire right now, but we're sticking with the, what's his name? The backup. The one that got the shutout here.
Dobish?
Yeah. They've been playing him because he's playing well. He's winning. So they keep playing him. They're not going to go, we're going to go back to Montembeault just because whoever's going to win the games is going to play in net.
Unless they're playing on back-to-back nights and they split them.
Sure, but
it depends what the situation is. So that's
the
the point.
question was, why did they play Wool? Because he's their starter. They're trying to clinch.
I don't think it was that
spot.
cut and dry.
How could it not be?
Because they'll clinch tonight if they win in Tampa Bay. So why did they play Stolarz at home against Florida last week? Because it was his former team.
I don't know.
Well, exactly. They were close. If they want to win every single game, then they wouldn't rotate goalies.
I completely agree. But every point counts, right? It just gets to be a little more cutthroat when you're getting down. But you don't, if they determine that Wool is playing better, that's who they're going to start because they want to get the win sooner than later.
Shane has another comment. Do you want to throw that in,
Shane,
Ben?
the Winnipeg?
The Brandon guy.
Brandon.
So Shane says, 100%, I would say based on 10 games played, Stolarz will be the starter in the playoffs.
I don't think it's cut and dry. I know that people feel that Wall is the number one guy, but he was horseshit here last night. So we'll see how Stolarz plays tonight because it's another it's almost must-win territory for them if they want to finish first.
Agreed, but maybe that is what they're doing is trying to determine who their starters.
That's probably what it is, for sure.
Yeah,
and it's kind of scary that you don't know that they don't know.
We're putting way too much emphasis.
Yeah,
on
it's a pretty
Leafs
big deal, Sarina, on the goaltenders, and I think coaches should spend more time on it than they do. That's all. That's what I'm asking. My point was I don't even know how we started on this, other than Leafs at Lightning tonight. This is like it's a massive game because if Tampa wins in regulation, they're tied for first. Tampa could win the damn pennant.
Yeah, but I don't. Going back to what you said about the goaltenders. I don't think there's any coach in the NHL that's just not paying attention to their goaltenders. They just don't talk about it. You know how tight-lipped they are with goaltenders? They don't say anything.
No, I don't agree at all. They've got goaltender coaches. They got 3 assistant coaches. They sit around and talk about this in meetings for hours.
That's what I'm saying. They're talking about it. They're paying attention to it, but they're not telling everybody else about it.
And all I'm asking is what's gone into their decisions.
How the fuck should I know? I'd have a job as a coach in the National Hockey League if I knew.
Okay, let's move on.
Let's.
So you were talking to somebody from a national network. You said you wanted to get into it today. No Red Wings, no Bruins, no Rangers, no Blackhawks in the playoffs. Not good.
Well, not good for the ratings.
That's what I mean.
ESPN has the rights over everybody, right? They have the rights over everybody in the United States as far as television is concerned. Now, ESPN's biggest concern right now is, wait a second, we don't have all of these teams that normally draw in the playoffs right now. So now what do we do? So now the discussion goes, okay, if Tampa and Florida are playing each other, that'd be a great series. And ESPN's like, no, we're not showing that. They don't care if it's going to be a good hockey series. They literally have said it doesn't get a draw. They don't get viewers. That's why they don't show it. That's why they won't show it. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do because all of the teams that they want to show are in the West, But the game times are so late. So they want to show if Colorado and Dallas play. They want to show that series, but it's a 9:00 Eastern start. So this is where ESPN, this is just all what I heard from conversation last night. This is not me saying these, but nobody cares to watch in Florida. Nobody's going to watch that. Nobody in the United States is going to watch that. That's why they're upset, the Chicago's and whatever. Now what are they going to do? They're obviously banking on Washington being, a team that they can show. But other than that, they're not really sure what they're going to do.
Yeah, that's it. Part of the argument I've never got, because we're going to be watching no matter what, right? Like, I don't tune in soccer because, so-and-so countries are playing. No, you do. But I don't.
That's the whole point. The hockey people are saying, I don't understand. This would be a really good series. But ESPN, like we always say on here, it's a business. So if you're going to defend the National Hockey League for adding more teams because they'll make more money, you have to understand why ESPN goes, I wouldn't show 2 Florida teams because it doesn't draw a crowd. It's true. It's like, sure, obviously people around here would watch it, but nobody else really would.
Well, you got to start somewhere.
Would anybody here watch if LA and Anaheim played in the playoffs? Would anybody in Florida watch? Absolutely not, because you don't care.
We'd be in bed.
Yeah, but they don't care anyway.
There's that too. But the one thing, I mean, I will take the other stance on this, and I fully believe it. West Palm Beach was was 7th out of the top 10 viewership markets for the Four Nations Face-Off final, which shocked the hell out of me. It was a big deal. I can't remember where I read it. It was like USA Today, the ratings columns that they write on that, the television ratings columns. And I just think that's a really good thing. Is that because they thought Kachuk was in it and all the Panthers and Lightning, or do they even know? I was shocked that West Palm Beach was 7th out of all American cities. That's a lot. That's a good thing.
Was it the county or the city?
The city.
That's interesting.
As a market, I assume they counted the city, Yeah,
I would assume so. I don't know.
JC's comment. Do you want to read his, Ben? Do you mind?
Of course.
The most latest?
The latest of JC. So JC said, living in Dallas, I need 3 streaming services just to watch a full season of the Panthers. That said, I still have to pirate some of the games. Next season, I'm done.
I'll be honest. I will talk about that because I see that a lot online. There's a lot of Panthers fans that live out of market. She's an Oilers fan living here. I'm a Blue Jays fan. I'm missing watching the Blue Jays. Have you been watching them? Have you pirated it? You have? Yeah. Because I have not been watching it. And so I went to listen the other night, and the sons of bitches are trying to make me pay to listen. I'm like, nope. Whereas I can turn on the Yankees games anywhere and get them on ESPN. So do you have time for what he's saying?
Oh, listen, I don't blame him for 1 second. I don't blame you for 1 second. When we walked into Brent Woltman's house and there was rabbit ears, I was like, why do you have rabbit ears, Brent's like, so I can watch the Panthers games. I'm like, tell me that's a joke. But I was having this conversation with Mark Spector from the Oilers about why it's so difficult to watch here. He's like, Sportsnet is all hockey. If you want to watch an Oilers game or a Flames game or, I don't know, whatever, Leafs game, whoever, you can watch it. They have, when Montreal comes here, they've got English radio, French radio, English television, French television, all of these things. You can watch a Habs game anywhere. Any Canadian team, that's the only thing Canadians want to watch, so it encompasses the market. Whereas some of the contracts in the U.S., Chicago has a very difficult time getting the Blackhawks on local television. There was somewhere else that we were talking about as well. It's because the Sportsnet's like fighting to show the Oilers games because there's a fight between, like the CBC and Sportsnet on who's going to show the Hockey Night in Canada because everybody wants it. Here it's the opposite. The television networks don't want to show the games because it doesn't bring in viewership, just like ESPN.
Right. So all I will say to that is, he says, what did he say? Next year, I'm done because he can't get the Panthers on television. I don't know, man. Like Shane, watching from Brandon, says, I pay $150 a year to watch every single hockey game, Bell Center Ice. I mean, when I want to watch a game, I largely get it. So I've never really understood this streaming argument.
Yeah. So, okay. So in Canada, they still have center ice. We don't have that because we have ESPN Plus. But when I first moved to the US, I had the center ice package for years. So what Shane uses is the same thing, but we just don't have that in the US anymore. We have ESPN Plus. You can get every game on ESPN Plus unless sometimes it's blacked out because it's local and whatever. But living in Dallas, it shouldn't be blacked out. So it should be on ESPN Plus.
Right. So that's the thing. I'm almost done with it. But Ben, can you read the last 2 comments that have come in? And this show's going fast. We'll be winding it up here before long.
I know, it's crazy. So JC, rabbit ears for you younger kids are antennas. One person stands in front of TV, second person fiddles with the ears to get the best reception. The good old days.
Yeah, if you touch it, it'll get a better. My dad, this is hysterical. My dad used to stand there the entire game and try to get it perfect. He would just be enraged if that game wasn't perfect.
Holding the antenna.
Yeah.
Ben, you know what we're talking about, Ben, right?
I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
And Cyberuski?
And Cyberuski says, I agree. I tried to watch the Panthers the other day and couldn't have in Texas.
Yeah, so it's like me trying to watch the Blue Jays in South Florida. Unless you rig up a Fire Stick or something special, you're not getting it. So,
but again, you just get
or pay for it.
Yeah,
pay for it, boys.
But right, I wouldn't expect to watch the Blue Jays here.
Right,
without paying.
I thought I could listen to them without paying more, and then I was like, you know what? No. Joe Girardi's my gym buddy. Now I'm going to be a Yankees fan.
Ooh.
I'm joking, but I will watch the games.
But that shows you, like, the Yankees have their own network.
Yeah.
There's a reason, because the Yankees rule supreme. You know, it's just like we said, like Spectre and I were talking. It's like hockey in Canada. The networks are fighting over who gets to show the games. What does he say?
Well, JC they're conversing back and forth because they're both in Texas. They're going to throw a watch party and get together.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Bringing Panthers fans together here today. The biggest news of the week. I'm not going to get into playoff pairings or playoff realignment. We can talk about that when the playoffs are here. But Ovechkin surpassed Wayne Gretzky on Sunday. How do we feel?
We don't. We don't feel.
You have no feelings.
Yeah. Not really.
Okay. Well, it's funny because Yvonne, the nice lady, the receptionist at where my studio is, my other show, she was like, I don't really understand. She's from Pittsburgh, and I love her. I told you, she reminds me of my mom. I love her. She's like, I thought Sidney beat Wayne Gretzky's record. What was this Ovechkin thing? And I'm like, well, Wayne owns like 60 records. So Sidney broke 2 last week, but Alex broke another one. Do you know how many records Gretzky has?
Wayne had 62, and I think
so it's around there. Yeah,
I think Stephen Aho broke one as a rookie a few years back for Carolina, and so I don't know. He's got upwards of 50, high 50s.
Someday. Oh, Cyberuski's in Austin. Wonderful town. You were there not that long ago.
So fun.
It is a great place. Yeah. Just an interesting thing. Just a total diversion. But there's this talk, and Ben, do you follow the NBA? Can I throw you on here?
A little bit, yeah.
What do you know about the past generations not getting along with the current players? Have you heard this? Like the people from the Barkley age and the Michael Jordan age and the Gary Payton and these guys don't get along with the current players. They don't get along. They don't like them.
Really?
Yeah, and Elliot Friedman was talking about it this morning on NHL radio. Like it's gotten outside the basketball circles. People are talking about it. And I just laugh because I'm like, the hockey... Here's Wayne handing off to Ovi, just like Gordie Howe did to Wayne. But the generations of hockey people all get along. And Dale Talon said to you recently, he's like, in hockey, most guys are good guys. I could see him saying that to you.
Yeah.
Whereas the football guys, they don't really get along. How much do you know about the football guys?
It's funny. I think, like most sport, like once you're in the game, it's like I'm gonna get that guy. But apparently, like a lot of football players, they're pretty cool with each other. There is that rivalry that they have, but I mean,
the same age, yes.
Yes.
But I'm talking about generations of. Like, I don't think Larry Zonka and Dan Marino are hanging out with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I don't think that's happening. Mm-hmm. Whereas the hockey guys are.
Really?
They literally are. I see it. I live it. So it's just funny from sport to sport to sport. And baseball, I'm just kind of getting into that, so I can't say whether it happens or not. But you see it with the hockey people. They all get along.
Yeah. You know what I think is interesting about this conversation? As you guys were asking each other questions about this, a lot of times you look at guys that put their country on their chest. That creates a bond that is unbreakable. Whether you win or you lose together, it's an unbreakable bond. And so hockey has so many international competitions. Maybe that's what it is. Football doesn't, right? No. Football's a very me sport.
Yes.
It's a team sport, but it's...
Well, so the way I've never even thought about it till now. I just heard this basketball thing, and I'm like, I can legitimately see this happening, being a thing. Yeah. Whereas in football, for a variety of reasons, I've worked in that too. The generations don't really get along. JC says, current players are soft divas. This is why the game of hockey is amazing. The culture is incredible. I'm not going to say who it was with the Panthers that told me this, because there's a lot of guys that have been with the team for 30 years. It was one of them. And I said, how is this bunch of players? And he goes, they're really good. He goes, they're really good. And you know who it is. He goes, but the days of the Dave Lowrys and the Brian Scrudlin are over.
Sure.
Like, men.
We were talking about Bobby Clark last night. I'm like, they don't make them like that anymore. They just don't. I'm not a Bobby Clark fan, but those guys were tough. I'm like, they grew up playing on frozen ponds and having their ankles slashed when it was freezing cold and their teeth knocked out. They were just tougher.
They're tough.
They were tough.
I appreciate you, JC. He says, old hockey is genuinely excited about the new generation. Old hockey is very uplifting to the new age, like the Michigan goals, etc. You know, the game's changed, and the old guys, they want to be a part of it, and they roll with it. No, I don't. They don't.
I don't know too many old school guys that love the Michigan goal. It's a showboat goal.
But they don't bitch about it either. They just they admit it's here.
They ignore it, and they hope it goes away.
Okay, Ben, anything from you?
Another great show. Another number one Florida Panthers.
What was when I woke up this morning, let's just put this out there, and I saw the highlights between Dallas and Vancouver.
Whoop.
They're like, Vancouver won this game. I'm like, it's 5-2 with 1 minute left. What happened? And I just kept watching, and I've never seen that happen. Have you seen that happen?
It has not happened. It's an NHL record. No.
Unbelievable. And the fact that they won. I've never seen it.
The last time it happened was the biggest comeback was like 3 minutes. A team scored 3 goals in 3 minutes. That was the NHL record.
Ooh.
Last night, the Vancouver Canucks scored 3 goals in 1 minute. They shaved 2 minutes off the record and then came back and won. It's unbelievable.
I was like...
See, and that's why I love sports for a variety of reasons. But one of the biggest ones is every single night that you go to the arena, the ballpark, the stadium, you could see something you've never seen before.
Absolutely. When Chicago was here and we saw the fastest goal scored in Chicago Blackhawks history. Well, I was like, what just happened? And then it was a blowout after that.
Landon Slaggert. Didn't it end up like 7-1 or something?
It was not close.
Yeah.
I forget what it was, but it was, the shots were like at one point, literally, I think 22-1. And it was the goal, was the one shot.
Sabaruski says, that was wild. And JC says, also a note, Panthers won with Sarina back. You're not allowed to leave until the end of the playoffs.
Listen, just last night, I was like, I never see these sons of bitches lose. Every time I'm in the rink, they win. I swear to God, I was just thinking about that last night. Do you know how long it took me to see the Saskatchewan Roughriders lose live at home? I think I've only ever been to one game in my entire life that the Riders have lost. Everybody's kept going, go.
Yeah. She's the charm. Okay, everybody, thanks for tuning in. This has been a blast. Thank you, Ben. You rock, little buddy.
As always.
And we'll see you next week here on Florida's favorite hockey show, Cats and Balls.
Oh, I missed.
Because I try and catch it with not looking. All right.
I try and catch it with not looking.
Just knock it down, bro.
You did catch it one day, didn't you?
One day I did.
Yeah.